Hello, I'm Dustin Benzel, and welcome to another edition of Dustin's Viewpoints. This episode is going to focus on police in general and people being shot or otherwise killed by police in general. That's what the main focus of this viewpoint will be about. Now, there are like four examples that I can think of the top of my head that really address this situation. Oddly enough, all the victims were black, which is honestly surprising. Now, if you remember, I think it was in New York, there was a big guy who had asthma that was um he was taken down by a police officer with an illegal chokehold or something like that, and he died as a result of his injuries. Um Now, in that particular instance, I've really disagreed. There was really no reason for that at all. He wasn't exactly resisting from the video that I saw because he really didn't know what was going on. And I think the police officers took him way down too quickly in order to say that he was, in fact, resisting. So that one is a point against the police officers. Now we get into the whole Ferguson case. Now, the thing about the Ferguson case that really doesn't make any sense is that there are three examples of senseless murders that have happened, and yet the thing about the Ferguson case is that, let's see, was it Michael Brown or something like that? He was actually a criminal. He was actually a violent criminal, and people just went all crazy on that one. And I'm not sure what was going on with that case, but in my particular views, that one is the weakest of all of these cases. And the thing about the people, the media, and stuff like that, they really pick horrible cases to pick on. I mean, like I said, the Ferguson case with Michael Brown or whatever the heck the situation was. Anyway, the Ferguson case with Michael Brown or whatever was the weakest of the police killings, but I can understand why it was up there. I mean, but the thing is, there are two more examples that happened afterwards that was stronger cases of actually police senselessly killing someone for no justification. Now, so let me go into the other cases before we get into this viewpoint. The other cases, one involved a 12-year-old boy that was seen at a park with a, I guess technically a toy gun or something like a BB gun or an air rifle gun or something like that, where it shoots BBs and rifle or pellets and stuff like that. So it wasn't a gun that shot bullets, metallic lead bullets or whatever it was actually made of. Now, that one was horrible because I saw a video of it and I just can't see how the police were justified at all in that case. Um, and I will get into the thing. I'm not saying that the police are all bad in the decisions they make. I understand that, but there are some logical errors here and that need to be addressed. Okay, so then that one was in like what, Cleveland, I believe, or something like that. I'm not really sure where it was. Hold on just one moment. Little distraction. Okay, so that was the 12-year-old boy who was shot and killed by police. Now we go into the final case. And this one is probably one of the worst examples due to all the factors, and it was just plain ridiculous. And the grand jury actually said that there wasn't enough to charge the police on that one. And I've already addressed this in one of my news segments, and I said how bullshit it was. And that was the Walmart case of the guy who had a gun that could be sold at Walmart, and he was just waving it around or something like that, and he was talking on the phone, and the police came up and shot him. Now, they didn't exactly show his death, but from what I saw of the video and based on where the police were, the supposed victim in that case did not, as far as I'm aware, acknowledge the police at all. There may be evidence that shows that he did address them, but if I remember correctly, the police officers, at least in the video that I saw, were not exactly wearing police outfit. I don't know what they do in the Walmart that happened, but they weren't exactly wearing police outfits. They looked like they were wearing plain clothes. Now I could be wrong. I'd have to rewatch the video that I saw, but it looked like they were just wearing plain clothes. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm definitely not going to give two shits about police officer wearing plain clothes, okay? Probably going to care more about police officers that are actually wearing police outfits. But again, I might be mistaken. After all, these viewpoints are not exactly perfect. As I addressed before, there may be things that I'm not aware of evidence and stuff like that. But there is a common thread, and I need to address it. And there's a lot of logical errors and stuff like that. And so let's just jump in. Um, Now, I'm not saying that police are all bad and everything like that, but police often tend to make stupid mistakes that end up resulting in killing people. Now, a lot of people have been addressing a hypothetical to me that or well, not to me, but in the context of these killings. Well, we can exclude the New York case with the guy who got chokeholded because that wasn't exactly a shooting. But people have addressed that the other shootings, well, Ferguson, I believe, was basically the Michael Brown, I believe, was like defenseless or something like that, or let me look up real quick the Ferguson case because I don't want to be wrong in the name of this dude. Ferguson shooting. So is Michael Brown shooting at Michael Brown? Okay, good. So I didn't want to be wrong there. I didn't want to be like, it's not Michael Brown. What are you talking about? No. Okay, so anyway, people have addressed that police have just so little to think about what they're going to do, and they have to act in the protection of themselves and others. And, I'm not sure I agree with that because a lot of the situations that I've been seeing in regarding of police shooting or killing um, perpetrators or whatever for various reasons is getting to the point where they're not actually thinking, they're just doing. And that may work. I mean, someone said, well, while you're just thinking about it, the guy is probably killing people. The problem is that you can't exactly argue that. You're only arguing that as a hypothetical situation. In a lot of these cases, especially the Walmart person and the kid in the park, is that the gun was not entirely dangerous. He may have been able to cause some damage, and he may have potentially been able to kill someone under the right circumstances, but the fact is that there was no one really in danger. Now, someone will counter argue and say, well, the police didn't know that, and that's what I'm saying. You need to think about it. Simply the simple thing is that in both cases, apparently, of the Walmart shooting, as well as the 12-year-old boy who was killed, it was just about waving the gun towards people, maybe aiming at the gun or and stuff like that. But the thing that is important is no one was ever shot. And that is important distinction. No one was ever shot. Otherwise it would have been a big deal. There would have been more than one police officer and stuff like that and everything like that. And I've already addressed this in a viewpoint about parent blaming and stuff like that, but I want to go over it again. And you have to understand that in the case with the 12-year-old, he was 12 years old. He was 12 years old. And so I'm not sure he was actually expecting everything that happened to happen. And I think I've addressed this in the parent blaming or maybe in About Me and stuff like that. There may have been other videos where I address this, but when you're faced with police officers or anyone aiming a gun at you, you don't think clearly. You don't think logically. And see, people are like defending the police officers, yet they don't understand what's going on with the actual people who are actually victims of these shootings. You could defend the police at all, but you have to think of the mindset of the perpetrator and suspect. You don't know what you're going to do when someone's aiming guns at you unless you're in that position. I've never been aimed at a gun, and I would like to think that I'm all like badass and stuff like that, but that may not actually be true. I could be shot and killed because I'm like faking bravado or something like that, and that's the problem that people don't understand. They're only looking at it the mindset from the police officers thinking that, well, he's a dangerous threat, we have to take him down. And that reminds me of the CSI episode where Grissom and his team actually invested a case about a police or a plane incident where this guy died. And everyone thought that he was like drunk and crazy and he was trying to kill everyone, and everyone decided to kill him instead. And Grissom made up an excellent point. Well, it's easy to see why you would be afraid under these circumstances, but no one decided to think about what the victim was feeling, you know? And there was an actual doctor on that plane, and that really pissed me off because a doctor that puts off his or her intelligence for the safety of their own children is going to make stupid mistakes. The doctor should have easily been able to recognize that something was not right with the passenger on that plane. But that's not really relevant. But the point is, Grissom made the point is that we just focus on the outer things, that we don't think of the actual perpetrators, and we end up victim blaming as a result of it. Well, it's the victim's fault, or it's the victim's parents' fault, or whatever the case may be. But we don't know what was actually going in the mindset of that 12-year-old boy. He must have been scared shitless. No, he must have been really scared to have a police cruiser coming up thing and then basically just having their guns out, and then all of a sudden he ends up getting shot and killed as a result of that. And I know I didn't exactly address this in the news segment or even the parent blaming viewpoint that I did or that I may upload later on and stuff like that, but the thing is, no one was going on with his mind. And see, the police were under the assumption that he was like a 20-year-old kid or something like that instead of a 12-year-old kid. And I'm just thinking, well, even if he was 20, even if he was 30 or 40 and stuff like that, there is possibly a chance that you don't know what's going on in his mind. I mean, it could be easy for someone to think that they're not actually police. That might be one of the problems that people aren't addressing. How do you know that the police cruiser that runs up at you and the people in the outfits are actually police? Actually legitimate police that are here to protect and serve. I know it's probably a lot of fictional, but I've seen a lot of fictional cases where the police are like corrupted and stuff like that. That may not actually be the case in real life, but the way that I see it is that it may actually be corrupt. Now, this may be someone who just was ordered by the police to like, or by order some gangster mobster, and that's the problem. How do you know that the people that are coming at you with guns are actually trying to defuse some threatening situation? I mean, what if you were trying to defuse the situation and suddenly you were shot, killed? And no one would question it because it was the police officer's word over some little 12-year-old kid and stuff like that. We don't know what happened because from the video that I saw of the shooting of the 12-year-old kid, the shots took place when the kid was out of camera. I don't know if the police told him to put the gun down or whatever the case may have been, or put his hands up or whatever. But the thing is, the police were not really thinking of what was going on in his mindset. Now, one of the problems that I always found, and this may have been explained later, is that why people shoot to kill, and someone said that police are trained to shoot the center of mass or whatever, and that means the whole entire body because you want to put that person down, and that's why you don't go for legs and arms because you have a chance of missing, and if you shoot the body, the main body, you actually have a possibility of shooting them. Well, the thing is, police will do that even if it's a gun versus knife fight. If a whole bunch of people are afraid, I remember this case, and the police shot for no particular reason of this guy who was like running away for his life, and because he was running towards the police or something, the police thought he was a bad guy regardless if he had a knife or not, and they shot him dead. And as it turns out, those police officers shot without really thinking, and that's a problem. I know police have a split second to think about things, and a lot of times it ends up with shooting. But you may have to assess the situation first. Now, a lot of people are thinking, well, the police are going to die and the body count is raised up. And I'm just thinking, no, that doesn't make any logical sense whatsoever. Let's use the 12-year-old person's case, for example. Now, this may be a little rough, but it illustrates my point. If the police are going to go up so close to the 12-year-old boy, regardless of what they thought or whatever, and assess the situation and think about whether or not he was going to be shot at or first, they tend to deserve being shot and killed as police officers. I know that's harsh, but it illustrates the point. If you cannot protect yourself from being killed when you're assessing a situation, you kind of deserve to be shot and killed. I mean, and that's the problem that people don't address. Is that, well, of course, if your head is in view of the person with the gun and assessing whether or not he's going to shoot at you or not, you're going to get shot and killed. That's just how things are. But you have a giant police car that you could duck under and avoid. I'm pretty sure that at close range you could easily might be able to dodge a bullet than further range because you're not sure where that bullet is going to come from, but you might be able to dodge just quick enough to avoid being shot and killed, you know, and and a lot of times police just act without thinking. And that goes back to the New York case of the big giant guy. I think his name was Michael too, if I'm not mistaken, and that was took down by the chokehold. The police didn't even give him another chance. They didn't say, no, you're going under arrest and stuff like that. And then they didn't even try to take him down any other way. And I'm just thinking, if a chokehold can take a guy that size down that really quickly, even though it looked like he was not resisting, I'm pretty sure the amount of police officers that were there could have easily taken him down and could have put handcuffs on him. And he probably still would have been alive. But no, some police officer had to take it the wrong way, resisting or whatever, even though he wasn't exactly wearing police clothes. It was just basically a blue shirt with like FBI on it. So he was wearing plain clothes, and quite frankly, I'm not going to really believe any plainclothes officer. You want me to be arrested, you bring someone who's actually wearing police outfit, who actually has a badge and everything like that, and actually shows it to me. Then I'll put my hands behind my back, and then you could arrest me. Otherwise, I'm going to just think you're a dickhole who's just being a total dick for no particular reason. So that one I have to disprove on. Of course, the paramedics were more at fault because they didn't even do anything to help this guy at all. They just sat around waiting for death. So yeah, the paramedics may have been at fault, but it was all precipitated by the need to use a chokehold, which was unnecessary. I mean, seriously, that gigantic guy went down way too fast. If he was resisting at all, as the police say he was, he would not have gone down seconds after that chokehold was applied. There is just no possible way. There is just no way that smaller police officer could have been strong enough to handle something like that quickly. I don't know how chokeholds work, but I think it would have taken like at least 5 to 10 seconds. No, he went down as soon as the chokehold was applied. And that goes back to the point that police officers don't give a chance. They don't assess the situation, and someone ends up getting shot and killed, and they're like, oh no, what have I done? Oh no. And I would like to think that the police have the excuse that, well, they only have seconds to apply, but there's some logical errors there. First of all, if you're going to assess a situation, you know, can't just be driving up to the perpetrator and aiming guns at him, and then if he does something strange, you shoot him. That reminds me of the Dead Zone case where Johnny was trying to prevent some kid from shooting up the school, and the kid reached in to get out his cell phone, and the police officer thought and stuff like that, and that's one of the problems. Now, that's even more inexcusable. I know police have only seconds to decide, but they really should wait until there's actually a gun before shooting someone. And there may be certain cases where it was understandable, like the CSI New York case of the police officer who mistook, who was mistaken about who he was shooting, and it was just a guy with jewelry. Now that was understandable. That was understandable because the perpetrator actually did have a gun. And so, as far as the police officer knew, he just saw the guy that shot at him. But it was two different people. They were wearing the same clothes for some reason. Not really sure that would make much sense, but we'll just let that one slide. And that was the case. The officer shot the guy on mistake because he thought he was pulling out his gun, and that made sense a little bit. That was understandable. I mean, the police officer was just shot at. And so the next person he sees wearing the same clothes as the perpetrator that shot at him, that was facing away, that was understandable. But a lot of the cases, police officers don't even wait until that there is some shooting going on, or they don't see if it's a gun or not. They just shoot. They just think it's a gun. And I just can't accept that in terms of assessing a situation. Like I said, police may have a hard life. They may be making split decisions, but they're not logical decisions. They don't think thorough enough. They just act. They just do. They don't think before they do it. They shoot first and ask questions later. And I don't really like the mentality of police officers that do that. Now, there are other cases, and this makes it even more ridiculous, that there are actually police that actually talk to this guy there. And there was this case about a white guy who apparently had a gun, who had like a rifle or something like that, and he was like going around in public and like waving the gun around, and the police officers actually talked him down. Now, I don't I'm not someone who really cares about the whole racial profiling or racism, but when four black guys get killed by white guys for various reasons, you have to think that there's still racial profiling going on. I mean, you don't see a white guy being killed in the same fashion as these guys. Do you? No. And that's a problem that's going on. I just don't understand the whole racial profiling. I mean, if police are willing to talk to a white man who's waving a gun around, talk him down with a speaker and stuff like that, then you may very well want to do the same courtesy to black people, police out there. And that's the problem. I think the racial profiling is ridiculous. I think racism is ridiculous. Anything. If you're racist or if you're into racial profiling, you're just beyond retarded. I'm sorry, but that's just how it is. You're just retarded. Because if you think that your own race isn't capable of doing horrible, sick, disgusting things, then you are retarded. You are stupid. Now, I'm just calling you retarded just as a result. I'm not saying that you're mentally challenged or you have some disease. You're just plain retarded and you just don't understand how the world works. And I don't mean to be insulting or offensive, but that's just how it is. There is no point to racism. There is no point to racial profiling because all races are guilty of probably the same thing. For those police officers who are white, who are racial profiling, do you not think that a white person is just as dangerous as a black guy? What makes a black guy so much more dangerous? And if that's the case, then maybe there needs to be interracial partners going on. Maybe a white police officer needs to be partners with a black person. Because then maybe there wouldn't be as much racial profiling or racism and stuff like that. I don't like addressing this because there's a lot of instances where racial profiling and racism just doesn't work for a case. But when you have 4 cases where white officers are killing black guys, there has to be something wrong there. It's just too much of a coincidence that I cannot ignore. I will address my problems with racism and racial profiling in future Viewpoint videos, but But yeah, this is ridiculous. I mean, I understand split second, but if you're not even gonna bother to assess, I mean, the thing with the 12-year-old boy, and people just aren't getting that, is that he was so freaking alone that the only threat to anybody was the 12-year-old himself and the police officers who decided to pretty much almost run him over for the most part. And people are like, well, he could have been threatening other people. No, he wasn't. Yes, he was brandishing his little toy without the orange safety tip on it and stuff like that, which is ridiculous in of itself because if you're that close as the police officers were and you can't tell that the gun was completely fake or plastic, I think you need to go back to gun training. You need to go to stores where they sell toy guns and you need to look really careful because it is easy to tell between a gun and a plastic gun or basically a toy gun and stuff like that. But let's go back a little bit. There was no one around that 12-year-old boy. He was sitting basically under the gazebo or whatever the video showed, and there was no one else around, at least from the perspective of the camera. There was no one around. And when the police got there, he wasn't waving his gun at anyone. Now, a lot of people will say, well, he was just being threatening and stuff like that. Well, see that's the thing. Yes, he may have waved his toy gun at anyone, but it's not like he really did anything as a result. A lot of the people just went on. They probably saw it was a toy gun and everything like that. And the person who called was probably some third person perspective view. What about we ask the police? Why don't we ask the supposed victims of this 12-year-old boy in regards to whether or not they thought they were in danger? Because for me, from the video that I saw, sure, he was brandishing a weapon. Sure, he was pointing at them, but no one seemed like they were scared. Because they probably were really close to the gun and saw that was pretty much a toy. It was an air rifle or a toy gun or whatever you want to call it, and they pretty much just ignored it. The kid didn't have any hostages. None of them got on their knees and begged for their lives and stuff like that. Who was he possibly threatening? And that's the problem. The police didn't even bother to assess the situation. You know, see the difference between an argument. Well, a lot of people were like arguing, well, if you don't wait until you're getting shot at, a lot of police are going to be dying, and then using the example of hostage situations where a gun was fired. No gun was fired in the 12-year-old case, just like the Walmart case. The Walmart case was even more ridiculous because if I saw the video correctly and under the right assumption, the video did not show the police shooting him, but the guy was facing away. The police shot him in the back, and he was on his phone too. Now, I don't know why the grand jury decided to not charge the police on that one. That one was, like I said, bullshit. That one was pure bullshit because there was no way that guy could have known what was going on. And the fact that he had a gun that could be bought at Walmart, the police just do not think. They don't think about the situation. I understand that there may be a threat to public safety and everything like that, but the thing is, if there are no hostages, there are no gunshots being shot and stuff like that, the police should be obligated to assess the situation before going guns blazing and firing and shooting to kill. There are no hostages. There are no gun firing. There's no gunshots. There is no people being scared for their lives running everywhere and stuff like that. Police should be obligated to assess the situation. Now, if there are shots fired, if there are hostages and everything like that, then the police can go ahead and just go in there guns blazing and shooting. But if it is just basically brandishing a weapon like a gun, police should be obligated to check it out. They should assess the situation because unless shots are fired, unless there are hostages, unless people are genuinely scared for their lives, and that was neither the case with the Walmart case or even the 12-year-old boy, then police should be obligated to assess the situation. Now, I'm going to dismiss the whole Michael Brown shooting and stuff like that because that one was actually understandable. I mean, there may have been a possibility that the officer who shot Michael Brown may have been a little bit more aggressive and stuff like that, but that was in a particular case. Michael Brown was clearly trying to resist being arrested. And as we all know, Michael Brown was responsible for stuff like that. So I can't entirely excuse that, but it's just an example. It's just an example of the other three cases that should have gotten more focus. The case in New York about the guy who got the chokehold, the 12-year-old boy that was shot in Walmart, or not Walmart, at the park, and the young adult that was shot at Walmart. All four of these people died. So the situation with Michael Brown was different. It was because he was actually a suspect. He was actually a suspect. He actually inflicted violence. So the police kind of had a little bit more authority to be a little bit more violent with him or be more aggressive with him because he was pretty much considered armed and dangerous, if I'm not mistaken. He just attempted to rob a store, or he did rob a store. He was violent and stuff like that. That I can excuse. The police, I will probably side with that in that particular case. But the case with the New York about the chokehold, the illegal chokehold, the 12-year-old boy who was shot, and the Walmart guy who was shot, I'm sorry, but I cannot excuse that at all for the simple reason that there was actually no threat. Especially the New York case. The fact of the New York case was that he was completely weaponless and stuff like that, and the police just assumed that he was resisting arrest, and they just took him down way too quickly with a chokehold, and then he ended up dying. Now, that may have been a little different because the police actually had time to assess the situation in that, which makes the chokehold that happened on that guy even more ridiculous. You know, you know, and no one actually bothered to care about that guy's particular health. He had asthma and stuff like that. He said he couldn't breathe. I'm almost running out of time, but I want to quickly address that. I want to make it perfectly clear. You can talk and not be able to breathe. Breathing is an inhaling and exhaling process. And you can talk without inhaling. I mean, you can talk while you're inhaling and stuff like that. And then it sounds like this. But the problem is, breathing and talking are not the same thing. And I'm sick of people out there trying to, well, you're talking, aren't you? You're talking, so clearly you're breathing. No, you are a moron. I remember a case when I was in 6th grade where everyone was pinning this big kid down. They had his knee and he said he couldn't breathe. And the teachers were so ridiculous that they said that he couldn't breathe. Well, you're talking, aren't you? Well, no, don't be morons. Talking is simple, it's just exhaling. But breathing is an inhaling and exhaling process. It's a repeat process. You can inhale a lot of air and you can exhale it while talking, but you're not breathing because your lungs need fresh oxygen. So I just wanted to go the rest address that real quick. But like I said, unless there are hostages, unless there are shots fired, brandishing a weapon against people who basically just were able to walk away, police, I think, should be obligated to assess the situation. And if their fear of being shot, then you officers need to wear bulletproof vests. You need to wear a bulletproof helmet, or whatever the case may be. And then you really need to assess the situation. Unless there are shots fired or hostages or actually people in danger, you need to assess the situation. And if your fear of being shot, officers, well, make sure it's hard for the perpetrator to shoot at you. I mean, it could have been as simple as the boy was just stupid and he thought that he was just playing a game. You know? And like I said in the parent blaming, it just makes no sense to blame the parents because the kid was on his own. He was doing his own things. Sure, the orange tip safety thing may have been removed from the gun, but then again, that's not exactly definitive, and I already addressed this in that video, why gun makers have to make guns so realistic looking. I mean, if there's some gigantic bulb or something like that, or the thing and stuff like that, but then the problem is, what about people who make illegal guns? that are trying to kill people, that are bad guys. What if they try to make guns look like toys? And then they go around killing people as a result. That's the problem here. There is no safe solution. Even if the orange chip was removed from the 12-year-old boy's toy, there was no guarantee that it was real or not in the first place. So, the main point that I'm trying to address here is police should really assess the situation. Really. Even if it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 seconds, they really need to assess the situation. The police in the car were so close that they could have probably took that kid down easily without firing. And from the time frame that was stamped on there, there is no way the 12-year-old had any chance to comply. And it's even worse with the Walmart case. It was even worse. Now, I don't know when everything went down and everything like that, but the guy that was shot in Walmart seemed like he was completely ignorant of the police. He didn't give two shits about the police. And that one was even worse because he didn't even have the gun in his hands, if I'm not mistaken. He just had the gun next to him. Now, I don't know all the details and everything like that. Maybe if I completely knew exactly what happened, maybe I would be making, maybe I might be able to side with the police more, or maybe the victims in general more. But the point is, there are a lot of illogical reasons to be shooting people and killing people and stuff like that. There needs to be some sort of assessment going on. I mean, seriously, the police officers had enough time to pin that kid down at the park before the kid could have even reacted. But no, they seem to have they allowed him to reach for his weapon and some sort of justification of where they've been shot. Thing about police officers, and I don't think this applies to all police officers, is that police officers will usually make up excuses to get away with whatever they did, like resisting arrest. In a lot of situations, anything can be considered resisting arrest, and it's bullshit. And it's just arrogant asshole police officers who shouldn't be police officers in the first place. Now, I'm not saying that the police officers need to be charged or anything like that, but there needs to be some sort of procedural change here that you can get in serious trouble if situations like this happen. That's what I'm saying. Now, this is just my personal perspective, my personal opinion. You can believe differently. I wish I had a lot more time to go in depth of everything that happened and stuff like that because there were a lot more things that I would address, but wow. Anyway, this video might be edited because there were some interruptions and stuff like that. So this has been another Dustin's Viewpoints. Thank you for watching. Hope you got a nice perspective change. Agree or disagree, doesn't matter. Everyone has their own opinion, their own perspective. This is mine. And thank you for watching, and goodbye.